you'll be able to sift through them and use the search function. Today, I had a customer ask me about Dr. Saunders' top 10 reasons for heart problems. And I did a quick search and it was episode number 5. And I was able to give it to the customer. So they,
Wow.
That's
yeah,
good. Love it.
I don't even remember what they are.
I'm sure you do.
I
Number
bet
one,
if we
take
actually
a deep
sat
breath.
down, you'd probably pull the same answers out of your head. So,
Yeah. Yes. First, they asked for the link to the study, and I was like, I'm not. I actually think I found it, but you have to be subscribed in order to look at it. So,
oh,
yeah.
interesting. Okay. I love it. Okay, well, say hello again in the chat. Let us know that you guys are on. Today's going to be a good webinar. We're actually going to be talking about what to eat for strong muscles. Boy, this is a big topic in my house. I'll just tell you that right now. I have a young teenager and who's very into athletics and very into getting strong because he wants to play football. He plays football. He plays typically running back, but he plays kind of a corner and safety position as well, and just wants to gain weight, get strong. And so I'm probably going to need to send him this as well. But here's my question. I'm in my 40s. What do I need to do differently, or, than what maybe he's doing? I'm going to tell you right now, I can't do what he's doing. But also, what do you do when you're 80 and you want to have strong muscles? Do we need to have strong muscles? So I think this is going to be a really good topic for all of us to talk about. And so, Dr. Saunders, I don't know if you've seen part of this um, issue that we did in Home Cares That Work, but what I would love to do is for Cheryl and I just to be able to go through it and mention some of the things that were in the article. This wasn't one that you wrote, I don't believe, right? Is that right, Cheryl?
No, I didn't
He
know.
didn't write this. But another one of our writers, we have a great team. But I want to get your thoughts about these things, see if you have any differentiating opinions, I guess, and maybe what some of the latest things that you have. Actually, you know what I thought of right away? There's a list, but one of them doesn't mention rest or fasting. I
Oh,
feel like Dr. Saunders would say that. So, of course, he would say fasting,
on
probably
the
stress
nose.
reduction. So, we're going to dig into this. I'm excited to talk about this. Post your comments in the Q&A because we would love to hear or your
Questions.
questions. Sorry,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear those questions and we'll spend some time answering those here shortly. But let's pull up this issue here. What to eat for strong muscles? Okay, I'm just going to start with this. I hear this one all the time. Protein. Let's talk about protein. Why is this important or not important?
Okay, this is actually really good. See, I have a 17-year-old young man at home who is really into bodybuilding. And he's going to the gym every day. He's working out and he snowboards every day. And he's just, trying really hard to get big muscles. And he likes to take off his shirt and look in the mirror and kind of, like move in certain directions.
First of all, Dr. Saunders, they're going to be so happy when we send him send them copies of this video.
I know, right?
Yes, they're going to be really proud of us. Okay, anyway.
And so he's eating a lot of these things, and he's taking in extra protein and putting protein powder in, and then getting creatine and putting creatine powder in, and drinking it down. And he's reading books about it and watching videos about it. How do you build muscle? Okay, so protein is a big thing. When you eat usually more than 30 grams of protein at a time, like in a meal or something, it requires a little bit. So if you just have a tiny amount of protein, like, 5-10 grams of protein, you may not turn on your mTOR gene. So mTOR is the mammalian target of rapamycin. That doesn't mean anything, but what it does is it's an anabolic peptide. And this anabolic means it builds, and specifically it starts building muscle. And so you want to turn that on to build muscle. And it requires a significant amount of protein. And so interesting though, if you turn on the mTOR gene too much, and you have this constant anabolic metabolism, and you have the anabolic metabolism while you're catabolic, meaning you have high cortisol, then it seems to increase the risk of cancer. So there's a whole bunch of longevity people that are saying that are saying, how do I turn off that mTOR gene? And then there's a whole bunch of bodybuilding people that want to turn on the mTOR gene. Okay, so protein is the big thing. So if you eat a lot of protein, and 30 grams of protein is a lot. I think of an egg as about 5-ish grams of protein. So, a 6-egg breakfast would be about 30 grams, right? And my son eats a half a dozen eggs for breakfast. Plus he has other protein, right? So he's going to have like whatever else there is, bacon. Yes, we do have bacon at home. And then like if he has toast or bread, there's protein in the bread too. So gluten, for example, everybody's like worried about gluten. Gluten is a protein. And then whatever else he has on is going to have a little bit more protein. So so having a significant amount of protein turns on those mTOR genes that help you to build muscle. If you're working out, if you're doing things that cause you to build muscle. And then there's another half of that, we often talk about as the 6-10 reset. Leslie kind of alluded to it, that there's more to the picture than just taking in the supplements. If your body becomes anabolic by fasting in the evening, either skipping dinner or eating an early dinner, and going to bed by 10 o'clock with an empty stomach. And we call it the 6-10 reset because you stop eating by 6 and go to bed by 10. So 6 to 10. And then get up in the morning and eat something. But, it's probably better to work out first and then eat. Because that starts the anabolic, the building of the muscles, working out. Okay, so protein, how much do you need? That's the key. So if you want to get anabolic and build a lot of muscle, then you're going to need more than 30 grams in a meal. And for most people, some people who weigh about 160 pounds, they talk about how much protein per pound that you have, and it's somewhere around 100 grams of protein. Well, that's a lot of protein. Your 4-ounce steak is only 60 grams of protein. Okay, so you're getting close if you have a 4-ounce steak and 6 eggs in the morning. But who eats that much protein? And actually, protein has gone down. People are eating less and less protein as we get fatter and fatter and more obese in our society. The protein levels have gone down. Very interesting. People used to eat much more protein and fat and less carbohydrates. And now we're really like carb heavy with less protein. Fat still is kind of the same. That's why I'm getting fatter and fatter. So Leslie also alluded to what about, her kid that's building muscle versus her? What does she want? How much protein does she need? And it turns out that as we age, we actually need more protein. And it's not that we need more protein, it's that our digestion, absorption, and utilization of protein kind of diminishes. And so we have to make up for that lack by taking in extra protein. And so if you look at the current longevity researchers looking at protein, they say that young people can live on a relatively low protein diet, eating 0.5, a half a gram per kilogram. But as we age, we need somewhere around 1 milligram of protein per kilogram, or 1 gram of protein per kilogram. And that would, and so if you think of how many kilograms you weigh, I weigh about 70 kilograms. So I would need about 70 to 100 grams of protein because I'm 61 years old. Whereas a young kid could get away with half that, 50 grams of protein a day, because they assimilate it, use it, and store it better. Store it meaning in the muscles and stuff. So yeah, it does change with age. You actually need more. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. For me personally, I think if I am not focused on it, I do not get near the amount of protein that I need. Um, but as someone who tries not to do a lot of dairy, for example, I think that gets hard. Like I get to this place where I'm like, basically all I can have is meat. That's what it feels like. And meat isn't necessarily my favorite thing. I know some people love it. I eat it. I don't love it. There's never been a time where I was like, I can't wait to eat a steak. Like, I just don't have that. So I'm curious what you guys do for your protein. I do eat a lot of meat. I don't love it. I think once you're used to it a little bit more, it becomes a little bit easier. But what do you use for protein sources? I'd be curious as to what you guys use. And of course, eggs. I was actually just taking some notes, thinking through some things that we eat in a day. We do bacon at our house too. Um, and we do supplement with some protein drinks. It's hard not to do that for us. I wish we didn't, but that's just where we're at. So let us know. Salmon, love salmon. Actually, just got some smoked salmon yesterday. Um, See, I guess there are some other things I eat once I start thinking through it.
You know,
But
even
yeah,
even bone broth has protein
yes.
in it, or I recently bought some bone broth that has collagen in it, and that seems to, I don't, oh, I was going to say it adds to the protein, but it doesn't. It just adds collagen, but
Yeah, but collagen is a protein, and those are all amino acids that the body uses to make collagen and muscles and all that. So when you're building muscles, anytime you add protein, it does help to build muscle.
Yeah. Okay. This is good.
do you have
Um,
any other recommendations, Dr. Saunders?
Yeah, as Leslie was talking about it, types of proteins do matter. So a lot of people are into the vegetarian or vegan proteins, and the vegan proteins, like pea protein, for example, is not really a complete protein. It's not, and it's not as easily digested. That's the weird thing, that animal proteins are very easily digested, very easily assimilated, and they're complete and exactly what our bodies need. Plant proteins are not. They're hard to digest. So think of like gluten. Gluten is a protein. How many people are having a hard time digesting protein? It's like everybody I talk to these days is like, no, I'm gluten free. No, I'm gluten free. No, can't eat that. That's not gluten free. Go to a restaurant and do you have gluten free option? And everybody knows what that is. What is gluten? It's a plant protein from wheat. It's actually all grains have some type of gluten, but the wheat gluten is the one that people react to. Well, it's wheat, barley, rye has this type of gluten that's not water soluble. It's very hard to digest because it doesn't denature in the acid very well. You have to have a very high acid level in your stomach to denature the protein so that the pepsin and trypsin can cut it up into little pieces and send it down into the small intestine. So if that protein doesn't denature, it doesn't get cut up and it goes down whole into the small intestine. And then it starts an immune reaction because the immune system fights against whole proteins. That's just a plant protein. Plant proteins are actually harder to digest and they don't assimilate as well. And they don't have all of the essential amino acids. So what are animal proteins? Well, milk products, cheese and yogurt and all that stuff. And eggs and meat and fish. So you have all the chicken, beef, all that, pork, meat, fish. Those are all very complete proteins. Think of an egg. And what is an egg? I listened to a nutrition lecture, Max Lucado. He's really good.
Wait, Dr. Saunders, you can't listen to nutrition lectures because you're a medical doctor.
I know, right? That would be
What is
terrible.
happening?
I might learn something. So anyway, he was saying that, think of an egg as nature's vitamin pill. And I have been telling patients this for so long. What does that egg have to do? It has to make a complete organism. Complete. When the chicken comes out of that egg, it has a brain. So that means everything to make a brain is in that egg. It has to have well, not hair, but feathers, right? And so everything that's required to make feathers is in that egg. And so, egg is a great vitamin pill. It's probably the best because it's got absolutely everything in it. There's nothing missing. And it has all the amino acids and it builds muscle. So, the animal proteins versus plant proteins. And so if you're using plant proteins, then you need to mix them. You need to take the pea protein and the rice protein and put them together, and that gives you a complete protein. Because either one of them alone isn't complete with all the amino acids. They're missing some.
That's good to know because I like Leslie limit dairy. So all of these whey protein powders on the market upset my stomach and I don't feel like they digest well. So I tend to use the protein powder. So I have to make sure to look for one that has rice protein, is what you're saying. Or
Yeah, the mixture, rice protein, pea protein, makes it complete.
good
You
to
guys
know.
taking notes? That's what I'm doing.
I am for sure. So you're saying someone younger needs half the amount of protein than someone who's older.
Well, about half, yeah,
About half.
actually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think about all these kids who are pumping 120 grams of protein a day when they don't
Well,
need?
okay, but they're working out, right? And they're in the anabolic stage where they're building muscle and so yeah, they can do that 120 grams of protein a day. Great. Yeah.
And you said, so if you're taking a lot of protein while you're in a catabolic state, it can possibly lead to cancer. So
It's
for
yeah. Go ahead.
so for all of us who are not heavy workouters, but are trying to consume a lot of protein because that's what we're hearing messages all day long, is that bad for us? Or do we need to be working out in order to take that much protein?
Okay, great question. Yes, you need to be working out to take in that much protein. And that's what you want to do. And if you're not taking in the protein, then you can work out, but you're not going to get bulk. You're not going to increase your muscle mass. And so that's part of it. So having the extra protein allows you to store that protein in your muscles, and you build bulk. You get more muscle mass. So then the other part is this is where it gets difficult. There's actually there's diets out that are like this. Putting protein and fat together is great. It actually helps you assimilate the protein. You use the fat better. Protein and fat are just a great combination. And as soon as you mix carbs in, you ruin it. It just messes everything up. So I had somebody today with rosacea. He's got celiac disease. His intestines are worn away. He runs like 3 days a week. He's running 3 to 4 miles. He used to run marathons. And he works out at the gym and he's losing muscle mass. Why? Well, it turns out he added something into his diet because he had irritable bowel syndrome. He added a psyllium laxative, psyllium husk, to his diet, and it has like more sugar than psyllium husk, put it that way. It's got a lot of sugar in it. So when you're eating 10 grams to 20 grams of sugar just in your psyllium laxative, that's a lot. And then think about it this way. If you're getting a protein drink that has sweeteners in it and sugar in it, you're getting a lot of insulin too that's blocking your ability to assimilate that protein into your muscles. So we're talking about building muscles and we're talking about eating a lot of protein. But if you have high insulin, or not high insulin, if you're insulin resistant, which is often shown by high insulin, but if you're insulin resistant, what that means is you can't get those amino acids into the cell. They won't go in. So they won't be useful. So it's really important not to have sugar. So eat protein and fat. So if you have a steak, great, protein and fat. If you have egg, great, protein and fat. Everything in nature is protein and fat together with no carbs. And then well, look at the carbs. There's no protein in carbs. Eat an apple. Yeah, you get a little tiny bit of protein, almost nothing. Eat beans. Beans have a significant amount of protein, but it's not a complete protein. You can't rely on that completely. Anywhere you have high carbohydrates, then it's relatively low protein or low fat. Whereas protein and fat come together very nicely. So it helps the digestion. It helps you assimilate it better. You use it better. You bring it into your muscles better. So don't mix them. So and it's got to be a different day because your insulin levels go up and it raises your insulin resistance for 8 hours after eating fat. So if you have your eggs and bacon fatty meal, don't have toast, right? Have you can have vegetables and stuff, but just not a carbohydrate with it. You have to wait 8 hours. So one day you just have a lot of protein and fat, and then a different day you have carbs. So you have fruit and rice and beans and that stuff. So if you have them on different days, that actually works.
Is that behind the idea of carb loading? That some days you do heavier protein and then you have a carb day?
Yeah, there's a lot of theories around it, but I've had somebody recently who told me she's been doing that for a long time and has kept her weight down. She's felt great. Whereas when she tried either like the vegan diet or the keto diet, she didn't really feel good. So she's able to do both of them. She just does it on different days.
Okay, this is another big topic in my household. Creatine.
Yeah, it's in your household because you got a young man who's wanting bulk, right? He wants the weight and the muscle mass.
Yep.
And yeah, so creatine is something that is it's an amino acid that's made by your body. You actually make it. If you add creatine, then that tells the muscle, oh, we're going to add bulk. We're going to add more protein into our muscle. And so it's a signal too. So if your body does make it, some people make less than others, and that's the differences in people. You look at body types, and some people are really skinny with little muscles, and some people with little muscles are really strong. It's not that they're weak because they have little muscles. It's just that they have they used to call it wiry, people who are just, they're thin but super strong. And they probably don't have a lot of creatine. They just make less than other people who get the beef eaters that have this. They're just walk around really muscular, and they probably make a lot of creatine. Yeah, so creatine's a signal, different from the mTOR. That's a hormone signal. This is a nutritional signal to tell the muscles to add on bulk. Yeah.
So sorry, go Leslie.
Well, I was just going to say, I have read that creatine might be a good supplement for people of all ages now. A little bit more research coming out about that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that is that, remember I was saying how when we get older, we don't assimilate it as well. And it's not because there's something wrong. It's not aging. Everybody blames, oh, I'm getting old. No, that's not the issue. The issue is it's been going for so long, you're like insulin resistant, so you don't get the protein into your muscles as well. So where does adding creatine? Well, creatine's great for this. At any age, you can actually assimilate that protein better. But you know what? If you lower your insulin resistance, then you use the protein just as well as if you were 20.
How much creatine?
There's a big controversy over this. Some say the more the better. My son used it until he got diarrhea, and he goes, "Oh, I guess that's too much." So in terms of grams, and it's usually like 5 grams or so a day.
I think that's what my son uses. I do recommend that if you're going to start it, maybe start small, start low and work your way up. I
Yeah,
did
like
have some,
1 gram.
yeah, I did have some stomach stuff at first, but that's nothing new. But anyway, so I just have to be careful with things like that when I try new things. Okay. All right, we've talked a lot about these. This was something I think we were even going to do maybe a whole episode on, but essential amino acids. Okay, so they're the building blocks of proteins. They're crucial for building proteins. 9 are considered essential. What else do we need to know? What are essential amino acids?
Okay, and that's the issue we were talking about with the plant proteins versus the animal proteins. The animal proteins have all 9 of the essential amino acids, and the word essential is the literal definition of the word essential, and that means you absolutely have to have it or you will not survive. And the only way to get it is through your diet. There's no other way to get essential amino acids. So if you're not eating them, then you're starving to death. Even if you're missing just one essential amino acid, it'll throw everything off because you can't make that amino acid. And so what happens is really, it's amazing. The system is so wonderful. It's just amazing. So when you're making a protein and it goes through a machine, and the machine, it just the DNA comes in, and then the amino acid clicks on, and then it goes to the next one, and the amino acid clicks on, then goes to the next one, and the amino acid clicks on. As the DNA is going through this machine, it's just throwing the amino acids on there. If you're missing one, your amino acid is not there. It will take another one and go, well, we'll just throw this one in there. And it'll take a different amino acid and put in there. What does that do? Well, it may have a small effect on like an enzyme, the function, or your collagen or your keratin in your hair. But if you've ever seen people with protein deficiency, I remember having a kid with a liver transplant, and he was super protein deficient, and his hair was like super wispy and just really super thin and wispy, and his keratin wasn't strong, and like round hair like you expect. It was just really super thin. The body will still make the protein, but it'll make it with amino acids that are available if the essential amino acid is not available. But the protein won't be the same. It won't work as well. So in the case of like some enzymes won't work well, and so this kid, his skin did not look good. Of course, he was really pale. I mean, for heaven's sakes, he's having a liver transplant, and he can't process things very well, and this was a bad situation. But just the point to point out that if you're missing essential amino acids, your body will use a different amino acid in that place, but it might not work as well. So that's where you get a lot of problems in your body, enzymes that don't function, or skin tears easily, or hair that's wispy, or things that aren't strong. They aren't muscles that aren't strong, all that.
Okay.
What about branch chain amino acids, BCAAs? I see those around in the muscle building section.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So here's another level, and that is within those 9 essential amino acids are 3 that are valine, leucine, and isoleucine. Are essential amino acids that are branch chain. And what that means is all of the other amino acids, they connect one to the other, 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 making a chain, right? Whereas these 3, if you put a leucine in, for example, it can connect on one side, the other side, and the top. So now you can branch off. And so you can actually have proteins that have branches going out and doing different things. So it's not just one long chain. It's a chain that here, and one comes off, goes this way, goes that way. And that is really important. Those essential amino acids are so important. If you don't have those, you die. But here's the other funny thing, and that's where the next level comes in, and that is they can be used for energy. And when you eat them, they turn on the mTOR gene that causes you to start building muscle. And so muscles can use them for energy. Muscles also use them when you eat them. It turns on the muscles. So when you go to a bodybuilding store and you have this, big old huge container of BCAA on there, and it's written in big letters across there, and everybody knows what that is: branch chain amino acid. And it's just 3 amino acids. That's all it has. Whey protein has those 3 in pretty good amounts. So a lot of people use whey protein, and some people buy just the pure BCAA so that they can, to build more muscle.
Okay, I think I saw calcium and vitamin D. How important are they to build muscle?
Okay, that's really important. If you don't have enough vitamin D is a hormone. And that's important to know. It's not a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. It's a steroid hormone. It's related to testosterone, which is an anabolic steroid, right? It helps you build muscle. Well, vitamin D is also an anabolic steroid. It is really important for building. And part of it is protein. It doesn't turn on muscle the way like testosterone does, but it's an important part of it. And you also have to have calcium with that. The calcium helps to, muscles need calcium to contract. So that the calcium is part of that, having strong muscles, using your muscle strength, and building muscle. And the vitamin D also helps you absorb the calcium. So there's a lot of, they fit together so nicely. It's beautiful.
Right. Iron.
Okay. So iron deficiency is pretty rare. If you have iron deficiency, then you need to know why. Because you're not absorbing iron. It used to be that people didn't get enough iron in their diets, and iron deficiency was fairly common. But these days, iron is really easy to get, and you have more people who have excessive iron than not enough iron. So iron is not one of those things, excuse me, that everybody should supplement. In fact, if you look at the supplements, you'll have like multivitamin, and then you have the exact same brand multivitamin with iron. All right. So one of them has the iron, one of them doesn't, because some people need extra iron. It's not that common, but more people want to avoid taking extra iron. Iron is an irritant. It causes damage. It's an oxidative metal that causes oxidation of the tissues in the body. Oxidation is damage, and then when you damage like the DNA with oxidation, you get dysfunction, and the enzymes don't function right, and that's where cancer comes from. So iron is not just like the more the better. This is definitely not the more the better. You don't want too little, because if you have too little, you can't build muscle. So, but you don't want too much. So how do you know? Test. That's the best way. If you don't test, you don't really know. So you need to know what your iron, TIBC, and then the percent saturation, and then ferritin. Those are the 4 tests that need to be done to find out if your iron is okay.
I'm going to quick ask this. Lily had asked, is creatine different than creatinine?
Yes, creatine is made into creatinine. Creatinine is a total waste product. It's not good for you. You just got to get rid of it. And the only way to get rid of it is in the kidneys. So we use it as a way of determining if your kidneys are functioning properly. But yeah, it's just a pure waste product. It's not useful.
How much vitamin D and calcium do you recommend?
Okay, vitamin D between 5 and 10,000 units a day. So on the low side, 5,000 units, I have found gets people into the normal range. Right around the optimal range is 50 if you measure your blood level. I think that's micrograms per deciliter. I think that's what it is, the units. So somewhere around 50, and so 5,000 units a day gets you that. So like the Synachroma, we formulated it with 5,000 units of vitamin D specifically for that. Now, some people need higher doses. Well, why would you take a higher dose? If you have osteoporosis, if you have any kind of calcium problem, if you want to build your immune system, if you have a predisposition to cancer or a cancer in the family or something like that, you may want to take a higher dose of vitamin D. Vitamin D binding protein is macrophage activating factor that actually is the macrophages that take the cancer cells out of your body. So, so having a higher level of vitamin D gives you more vitamin D binding protein that activates more macrophages. So having that and low vitamin D has been shown to be a risk factor for increasing cancer rate. So enough vitamin D is around 5,000 a day, and on the high side, if you want a high side because of, for whatever health reason you have, then you take 10,000 a day.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you often say most people are deficient in vitamin D. Like,
oh yeah, it's just you have to get it from sunshine, and everybody goes out with hats on and they're rubbing sun. SPF 50. You know, when I was a kid, we had coconut oil for on our skin. That was our tanning lotion. And now it's like everything is SPF 50 or more, which means you're not getting any ultraviolet light into your skin where that dihydrocholesterol is, dehydrocholesterol that makes the vitamin D. So you just don't make vitamin D. And you know, it's really interesting. I was reading up on vitamin D. So every single animal needs vitamin D. Lizards need vitamin D. Chickens need vitamin D. And so you think about it. What about all these things like all these animals that are covered with fur and the ultraviolet light never hits their skin? So chickens, for example, they make these dehydrocholesterol in their chicken legs. So just their legs, the sunshine hitting their legs gives them enough vitamin D.
wow.
And others eat it. So the fish, we get vitamin D like from cod liver oil. Where does the cod get it? It doesn't get it from the sun. Well, up on top of the water, there's these zooplankton that make the dihydrocholesterol, and then the sunshine hits them and makes vitamin D, and then the fish come and eat them, and then the bigger fish come and eat them, and that's how they get their vitamin D. So isn't it interesting? Like everybody needs vitamin D, and it all comes from the sunshine. There's no other way. It just comes from the sun.
Cats, like I have cats, they lay in the sun. Like if the window's open and the sun's shining in, they get they find that spot.
Yeah, but they eat livers too. Cats eat livers. Dogs don't. So some things that don't eat meat, like sheep, for example, where do they get their vitamin D? They're totally covered with fur. They lick their fur. They release something called lanolin into the. In fact, that's where they used to get vitamin D. Was they would scrape the sheep fur and get all the oils off. And then they expose it to ultraviolet light, and then they put that in a pill and give you vitamin D. But so if they lick their fur, they get their vitamin D from that.
I do want to mention that our Synachroma does have vitamin D if you're taking that. I know a lot of you are. Any other recommendations? Well, let me ask you this. Is there anyone who shouldn't take Synachroma? Because I feel like everything in it is really good.
You know, for a multivitamin that only has a list of like five things in it, it is really good because it's the kinds of things that in our society, at least in the United States, that we're commonly deficient in. You know, we don't get selenium in our soils like they do in South America, for example. We don't have chromium in our soils. The plants don't need selenium or chromium. And so they're not put in fertilizers, so we don't get them. So supplementing them is a good idea. So pretty much I would recommend Synachroma for everyone as just a regular supplement.
Yeah. Someone had asked how much calcium. I don't know if we
don't take extra calcium. And make sure you get vitamin K. We put in the Synachroma, we put the 5,000 units of vitamin D with vitamin K, 300 micrograms. So we have the right dose, the right amount of each one, and we don't have any calcium in there. Because what the studies have shown, and multiple studies have shown this, and one of them was a big study in women, the ones that were taking the vitamin or the vitamin D with calcium. So if they're taking extra calcium, then they build up calcium in their arteries. And so they get hardening of the arteries from taking this extra calcium. The vitamin K takes it out of the soft tissue, meaning the walls of the arteries, and puts it in the bones where it belongs. It's supposed to be stored in the bones, but it requires vitamin K to do that. So when you're taking vitamin D, take vitamin K and don't take calcium. Foods have tons of calcium in them. You can't miss calcium.
How about magnesium and potassium?
Okay, that's a different story. Magnesium, we almost wanted to put magnesium in the Synachroma, but for diarrhea kinds of issues, we decided not to. Magnesium can cause diarrhea in some people, but it's a very common deficiency. Magnesium comes from anything green. So the color green, like vegetables, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, not cauliflower, it's white, kale, spinach, all of the green things, they're green because of magnesium. So people, like the only greens that a lot of people get are lettuce. But lettuce isn't very green and doesn't have very much magnesium in it. And so the other way to get magnesium is from anything that grows. So a seed that grows, and that would be whole grains, nuts, seeds. They all contain magnesium. So nuts and seeds and dark green things. That's where you get magnesium. So think about it. Do we have staple foods in our diet that are nuts and seeds or dark greens? No. So magnesium is a common deficiency. And so I think like everybody should supplement magnesium too. The other one is potassium. And supplementing potassium is a problem because it makes soap out of fats, and the lining of your intestines are made out of cells that are, have an envelope fat around them. And so it's an irritant to take potassium. So eating potassium by getting fruits and vegetables, sufficient amounts every day is a good idea.
Does magnesium help with building muscles?
Oh, that's your question. Of course it does. Yes. Okay. So magnesium is part of over 300 different enzymes, some of which are these anabolic, some of which create the anabolic state and allow you to build. And a lot of other enzymes that require magnesium are making energy. And that energy is required to build muscles. And so, yes, magnesium is an important part, and it's a common deficiency. So yes, take magnesium if you want to build muscles.
All right. Last part of this that we want to discuss is probiotics and prebiotics. Does that help in muscle?
Okay. Probiotics. So prebiotics are the fiber that grows probiotics. Probiotics are the bacteria and other organisms, yeast and fungus and even viruses and phages and all the stuff that's in the large intestine. There's like a whole world in there. It's so weird, this micro world of the large intestine. No light, no sunshine. That's where the sun never shines, right? And so that group of bacteria and everything as part of your body is an important part of decreasing inflammation and providing you with vitamins and substances that you need to grow. And so in that sense, the probiotics and prebiotics are important. Prebiotics being fiber. Where do you get fiber? Well, fruit and vegetables are a great place to get fiber. Whole grains are a great place to get fiber. Interestingly, people who are on carnivore diets, they get protein fibers, and they grow totally different bacteria, but they grow a broader spectrum of bacteria. So, and that helps them build muscle too. So even people on a carnivore diet have a lot of good bacteria in their intestines, and that help them to grow muscles too.
All right, let's see if we can get through some more of these questions. Michelle says, this is a little bit not in relation to what we were just talking about, but a good question. How can I prevent a bloated tummy? I cannot figure out the cause. I used to be vegan, but now vegetarian. Either way, I was and am bloated. I like cheese and nuts, occasional salmon.
Okay, so a couple of things to think about. So bloating, what is bloating? Well, there's two different causes of bloating. One is muscular contraction and the other one is gas. So how do you know if you have gas bloating or muscular contraction bloating? So think about it. So if you sit here, you just sit up straight, take a deep breath into your stomach bloats out, right? And as your diaphragm is pushing everything in your intestine and in your abdomen down, and then your abdomen bloats out. And that's the muscular contraction. And sometimes there is a thing called diaphragmatic spasm, where the diaphragm spasms and pushes everything down, and you just feel bloated. There's pressure in there. And often it happens with eating, because eating stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's also the diaphragm is stimulated by the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's the normal reaction is when you eat for the diaphragm to relax and allow room in there, but for your muscles around your oblique muscles, they're called, in the abdomen, to contract and hold things in. So it's called a can, and it allows room while you're eating. So if you eat, and every time you start eating, you just get really bloated, that's probably a diaphragmatic spasm. Different issue entirely. The other reason is gas bloating, which may not happen for 30 minutes after you eat, for example. And that's from bacteria that are digesting certain carbohydrates that are made into gas. And that gas causes bloating. And you can tell the difference because you'll have a lot of gas. You'll be passing a lot of gas. So an average person passes gas about 14 times a day. And that's average. But if you have a lot of bloating and you're passing gas, then and it happens about a half hour or more after you eat, then that's usually from bacteria. It's from what you're eating is being digested by bacteria in your intestines. So that's a problem with the bacteria. You can change that with probiotics, or what you're eating, and you can change that by trying different fibers and seeing what causes the bloating.
All right. Another question here. Susan says, how can I determine why my C-reactive protein number is high? What is the solution to lower the number? Or what is the solution to lower the number?
So CRP, C-reactive protein, is a marker for cellular distress. So usually it's the liver would be the common reason for that. So ask the question, why? Why is there cellular distress? So sometimes it's an infectious disease. Sometimes it's an inflammatory condition like arthritis or lupus or some rheumatic condition. Sometimes it's metabolic. And so you have to consider that too. If you have insulin resistance, your CRP is going to go up too, because that blocks insulin resistance, blocks you from using fat for energy, and you're causing cellular distress by not having enough energy. So that's a metabolic problem. So whether it's inflammatory or metabolic, whatever's causing the cellular or infectious, whatever's causing the cellular distress has to be dealt with. And so the CRP is just so broad and general, it could be anything. And you start looking for the reason, why is the CRP elevated? And then once you find the cause, then that's how you deal with the CRP, not by looking just to bring the number down.
Lily says 81, 5'4", 102 pounds, I think. Eat healthy, including protein, leafy greens, but not a lot of food. Some muscle loss, sarcopenia, creatinine, 24-hour urine, 426, range 800 to 1800. What does this say? Is it dangerous? I walk 4 miles plus mild weightlifting.
So you're not excreting creatinine very much. So you have not a lot of food. 5'4", 102 pounds. You're pretty thin. 81 years old. That's good. So muscle loss is expected. I mean, you don't weigh a whole lot. But working out, that's a good idea. No, it's not dangerous. Actually, it's pretty good. In fact, the 24-hour urine creatinine is going to be low just because of the sarcopenia. So that's not an issue by itself. That just tells you have low muscle mass. So a lot of this is what we were talking about today with protein. How do you build muscle when you're 81 years old and you want to build muscle? You're going to need protein in your diet. You're going to need to work out and add extra protein. So, you might even try looking, what does it look like to eat 100 grams of protein a day? And look at that to increase your protein. And be very wary of anything that has sweetness or flavors in it, because that will prevent you from getting that protein into your muscle cells so that you could build. So avoiding carbohydrates. So all of the things that we talked about for building muscle, get enough vitamin D, get some creatine, actually, take extra creatine, eat high protein, especially in the morning, and then work out to build muscle.
Okay, Susan said, what can be taken for better digestion and better absorption of protein?
Oh, wow. That's like a whole nother, that's huge, because people are very different on how they digest and absorb protein. And it's because of our enzymes. Our enzymes are a little different. And so some function really well, some don't function really well. I had a guy today who's had years of poor protein digestion. So if you have rosacea, if you can see blood vessels in your skin around your nose or around your cheeks, that's called rosacea, and that means the blood vessels are enlarged. And that inflammation happens from poor protein digestion in the stomach. So that kind of gives you a clue that there's something wrong with your protein digestion. So celiac disease is one reason for that, and that's a protein that's not being digested properly. But milk proteins like whey is pretty well tolerated, and most people digest it well. It's the casein in the milk, which would be the curds, the cheese, that's the protein. A lot of cheeses are tolerated, especially aged cheeses, because they're partially digested proteins. But if you're drinking like whole milk, especially if it's been heated, like pasteurized, a lot of people don't tolerate that protein. And so that you have the protein two. What's the other the other type of milk? M2 protein.
A2?
Yeah, yeah. That helps. That's a different type of protein that is more easily digested. So there are certain proteins that are more difficult to digest. So the question is how? And the number one most important thing is to get the acid up in your stomach when you eat protein. And the way to do that is to not have any carbohydrates with a protein meal. Carbohydrates cause the release of cholecystokinin and drops your acid level so that you don't make enough acid to digest the proteins. You just have to have protein and fat together in a meal and not have any carbs with the meal. And that helps you to make enough acid to digest that protein well. And then eat carbohydrates separately at a different meal. That's the way that helps. Another thing is to have 4 to 5 hours, ideally around 5 hours between meals. So when you eat, you make a lot of acid, and then between meals you have no food in there, so the acid comes down to normal, to none, and you reset your acid production. So that's another important thing.
I have so many questions about that as well, but I know our time is up.
Go ahead.
No, what about people who take opomazole? People who take acid reducers? And
yeah, they're not going to digest protein very well, and some of them do, and some of them don't. So people that take the chronic, like omeprazole and those, they don't absorb divalent cations very well, like magnesium and calcium and zinc. They don't absorb vitamin B12. And they don't get protein. So yeah, those are bad. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, we're way past our time, so we better let you go, Dr. Saunders. Thank you so much, and we will be back next week.
All right.
Great questions. Great
topic.
It was a really good topic. I feel like we could talk about this even more, and we may have to create some other webinars just based on some of this. So thank you for being here today. Come back next week, 2 webinars. You can find information for those at bartonwebinar.com. But